Hello everyone. Today I'm going to take a look at the upcoming module or the upcoming consumable that's being added to the high tier French cruisers, and that is of course that reload booster consumable, which basically cuts your reload in half for 15 seconds. And if you run superintendent and if you run the premium consumable, you get 5 of them. As you can see here, it's bound to my Y key. Now, I actually quite like this addition for the Henri because, well, first off, we gotta understand why is Wargaming adding this gimmick to the game. Well, that's pretty obvious. French cruisers were kind of a failure. I mean, they will like to sugarcoat it and they will like to pretend like it wasn't that bad, but French cruisers were not that popular, especially not the Henri. In fact, if we look at the Henri got released like what, beginning of last year, beginning of 2017, and it's got like 440 something K games on EU. In comparison, the American light cruiser line, which was just released, already has like over 100,000 games. So in a fraction of the time, the Worcester has already clawed up a quarter of the games, and that's on EU. That's on EU, where obviously French lines are going to be significantly more popular. On NA, the Worcester already has clawed almost half the games played of the Henri 4. So it's obvious when you compare them like this, it's obvious like the popularity of the Henri 4 is very, very low. You don't see a lot of these ships. It's a pretty uncommon cruiser to spot. So they wanted to do something to make this ship line more attractive to players, which I perfectly understand. I mean, it doesn't perform that well. It's not that popular. Never thought it was a bad ship, but it didn't really have anything going for it besides, well, it's fast. That's kind of its thing. So they're trying to add a bit more to it. My issue is though that the problem is that the Charles Martel and the Saint Louis are actually two quite well-performing cruisers. So in order to make up for this gimmick being placed on the tier 8 and tier 9, they actually nerfed the reload. So the Charles Martel and the Saint Louis have their reloads nerfed from 12 seconds to 10 seconds. From 10 seconds to 12 seconds. And that's a 20% DPM loss. That is very, very significant. Losing 20% of your DPM to get like basically a gimmick is horrendous, and I don't think that's going to increase the attractiveness of those ships at all, because I for one I am less inclined to play those ships after that nerf, because, well, you can see I'm using the consumable now. I caused 2 fires on the Republic, and the Republic used this damage con. So I pop my reload booster, and you can see how quickly my guns reload in order to try to create as many fires on this ship as possible. Basically putting in some bursts. You can see how quickly the guns reload, and I actually like the idea of this consumable because it gives the Henri something that it's kind of been lacking, and that's burst damage. It's always been like this steady workhorse DPM. It's got really good AP, but the shells are quite slow. I'm using the Dasher Captain, by the way, in case you're wondering about her voice. It's only a 10-point Captain, but I wanted to see how the upcoming Dasher Captains would sound like. Anyway, it adds some additional burst to these ships, and I think that's a great idea. The problem is on the tier 8 and tier 9, it takes out the only thing that they're really good at. French cruisers don't really have too much going for them. They don't have radar, they don't have any like hyper fantastic torps. They got 3 torps per side with decent range, but I mean, they're not going to be some incredible YOLO machines. They got spaced armor, which does save them at times, and it can be quite frustrating for the enemy, but their bread and butter, your win condition in a French cruiser is always based on dealing damage. That's how you win games in French cruisers. You kite, you farm, and you deal enough damage that it starts turning the game into your team's favor. And when on the tier 8 and tier 9, when you nerf the DPM by 20% to give them a gimmick, obviously you're going to be hurting that win condition heavily. So I hate this decision on the tier 8 and tier 9. I absolutely hate it. This is still on the public test server, so obviously these things might not be final, but I will say that I absolutely hate the change for those. On the Henri though, I kind of love this change. On the Henri, I do kind of love this change because, well, the Henri needed some form of additional oomph, some sort of additional boost, especially as of late with with the Zhao torpedo buff and in general just everything else getting slightly better, and then with the Wooster being added, the Wooster of course eats the Henri completely alive. If you catch a Henri by surprise, the Henri armor gets penned by all that HE and you just instantly explode. So they're trying to make this ship more attractive because it's very unpopular. And this is a pretty cool way of doing it. This is a pretty cool way of doing it because this is pretty much just a raw buff for this ship. Thank you, Dasha. I do like this change. For example, here, this guy turns broadside, so I pop my reload booster and I switch to AP at the same time. And I actually managed to get a really, really punishing volley on him with a double citadel and some overpens, and I'm breaking his engine and stuff. And that's something also to keep in mind, is that there's excellent synergy between the reload booster and running expert loader. Because if you run expert loader, of course, if your guns are loaded and you switch ammo type, it cuts the reload in half. So in this case, our 10-second reload gets cut to 5 seconds, or 10-second ammo switch time gets cut to 5 seconds. But if we pop our reload booster, we cut our 10-second reload into a 5-second reload, and then we apply expert loader on top of that, and suddenly we can switch ammo type in 2.5 seconds. So there's a lot of synergy in being able to catch ships off guard, being able to surprise ships by quickly switching ammo type while popping that reload booster to basically facilitate that rapid change. And I do feel it adds also a significant layer of skill on timing, how to use it, when to use it, how to get the maximum value out of the consumable. I haven't played Henri 4 in a while, by the way. If you see me missing some volleys, I haven't played this ship in ages because, well, I don't think it's a very interesting ship, but which is obviously why Wargaming is trying to change it a fair bit. Still though, I do think it adds a layer of skill on how to use the ship, how to utilize the ship, how to get the most strength out of it, because it has become a significantly bigger threat with this. Because in the past, if you're a cruiser and you're fighting a Henri, you wait until he shoots his AP volley and then you can turn away. Then you can like disengage and so forth. But it's not that straightforward now, because if you try to do that and he pops his reload booster, then you're gonna eat that devastatingly strong French AP on full broadside. And French AP is very, very scary. It's absolutely not to be underestimated. So it does add another layer of gameplay. It does add some interesting burst capability. It does add some increased threat to the ship. And overall, I actually really like it. On the Henri 4, I really like it, and it might just be like the small nudge that the French cruiser line kind of needs to get back into the game. Because honestly, the state with games played, there's 218,000 games played on NA. There's already 80,000 Wooster games played. Put that in comparison. Like Wooster is catching up to the halfway mark with a fraction of the months being released. So it's kind of like a dead ship in that sense. You barely see, and anyone who plays the game knows that you don't really see Henri 4s often. And anyone who plays clan battles, any sort of competitive, you don't really see them often either. Especially after the Zhao buff. All you see in competitive is Zhaos. Why would you use a Henri when a Zhao is much better at pretty much everything? So this additional buff in the usually I don't really like adding gimmicks, and in the sense of the tier 8 and tier 9 I don't like it, because well, you're nerfing a raw stat to make up for a gimmick, which is horrible. But on the Henri 4, where it's kind of just, it's a buff, but it's not that straightforward of a buff. Because you do know, like, many players will completely misuse it, and I have misused the consumable as well quite often. There are times where you think you're gonna get some good volleys off, you see someone about to turn broadside, then you pop your damage booster. Like this guy, he popped damage con, so I popped the reload booster to try to get some fires on him so I can kill him. Like situations like this, but then someone shoots you, there's torps coming in or something, and you have to dodge, you have to evade, your guns are turned off target, or the guy, you loaded AP for someone who's giving broadside, you pop your damage booster, then he turns in instead, and then you lose out on all that value. So there are it's absolutely still situational, and you have to be able to utilize it in the correct situation. So that's of course why obviously losing raw DPM for situational DPM, that's why the trade is so awful for the lower tiers. But for this high tier, it's for this tier 10, it's a pretty nice boost, and it might make us see quite a bit more Henri 4. I'm not really too opposed to this change. I think this has absolute value. We'll see if it might potentially be too strong, but there are so few Henrys and there's so little Henri gameplay, and Henri has so many weaknesses in that sense already that I don't really think it's the end of the world. Oh, he's giving broadside. Let's see if we can actually aim this correctly. French AP, as I mentioned, is very strong. That was too far in the front. You kind of want to hit the middle of his superstructure. Sadly, it looks like he is turning away. I would ideally want to get rid of this Yamato, because, well, my team is kind of collapsing. We had 2 AFKs. There we go, 9k AP. But he's already angled so much. At this point, I'm going to pop a damage booster just to try to finish someone off. And, like, in this kind of situation, it might also be really good in clan battles. Some low HP guy is about to flee, and you need that extra damage to finish him off. And the Henri 4 with the excellent range and AR reload, everything. I gotta wonder just how fast of a reload can you get if you have the French captain with the modified AR. Because you gotta remember, in this game I'm playing with a Dasha captain, which is literally a 10-point captain that is missing a lot of perks, a lot of goodies. So I imagine if you have the French captain with the improved AR and even maybe the legendary module that increases your reload, and then you have this reload booster, you can probably get some really insane burst out of this. And for that sense, I mean, in that sense, it probably needs some testing, because there's probably some crazy potential. Like it has the potential to be too strong, absolutely. But in its current state, this is a welcome addition to the French line. Absolutely a welcome addition. This game is pretty absolutely lost. We had I think an AFK Minotaur and an AFK Montana, and my team has kind of just been collapsing left, right, and center. So yeah, this is not going to be very easy to make anything out of. I'm shooting just for the sake of trying to do something. Republic gave a bit of broadside, so I punished him with some AP. And he's angling in, so we switch to HE. Or actually, I would switch to HE, but I'm honestly trying to bait the Wooster into shooting me, because I cannot spot the Wooster. He outspots me very easily. And if I push into the Wooster, he will easily kill me. So I'm trying to bait the Wooster into shooting me, or any of the cruisers, and then see if I can punish them as they give me broadside. So that's why I'm sticking to AP here, and I'm kind of just waiting for one of those cruisers to open up on me. I'm waiting for that Wooster to go ham on me. That's why I'm saving my reload booster as well. I know they want... There we go. That's the shells. That's what we were waiting for. Where is this Wooster? There he is. And we start shooting him, and we pop our reload booster. You can see it instantly cut my reload in half. And this DPM, like this burst potential, when you catch someone broadside who doesn't expect it, and then you go damage booster plus just this French AP, this Wooster is just being absolutely slaughtered. Well, I'm being pretty unlucky with the Citadels right here, but it does probably give you an idea of the potential, the raw potential that this damage booster has when it comes to just bursting down enemy ships. So it's a really cool mechanic, it's a really cool function and an idea, and it will probably need some testing to see just if it's too strong or not. But it does make the ship a lot more fun to play, because there's something extra going on. You are more than just your slowly reloading drudging guns that you slowly chip away at the enemies. There's more to it than that with the ship now. You have that burst threat, and it's pretty fun to play around it. It absolutely adds a layer to the gameplay. At this point, the game is already over. I'm trying to push in to see if I could get some resets in on the caps. I mean, I could keep humping the border and running away, but it's not like we're gonna win this game, so I'm just gonna go YOLO. I'm just gonna go ham and see if we can get some resets in. Get a reset on the Amagi, and then we're gonna switch to AP, see if we can kill that Wooster before we die. But you don't really have the armor in this thing, and with stuff like Wooster shooting you, you're just gonna melt. We got some final fires towards the end that we're gonna keep ticking. That's gonna keep ticking, but obviously this game does end in a very clear-cut defeat. 248k damage, but then again, this is on PTS, which will always undervalue any sort of scores because PTS players are an extra layer of special. What is pretty interesting though, team score, we can see the 2 AFKs we had. The base XP is of course quite high since I did do a fair amount of work. When we get to detailed report, I don't know if you noticed, but I actually have 3.7 million potential damage this game. That's because so many people wanted to kill me and, well, my team was kind of missing in action. Still though, the potential is there. I like the idea, I like the mechanic, I like the fact that it synergizes with stuff like Expert Loader, which means it allows you to suddenly punish ships giving broadside with smart use of captain builds combined with consumables combined with good player timing. Like that's a combination of many different player skills coming together and giving you that potential to punish ships. And I like that. That's rewarding good play, and I really like it as a mechanic. So very interesting, and this is something I will keep an eye out and something I will look forward to because maybe we'll actually start seeing a bit more of those French cruisers in the game. Anyway, that was all for me. That was a bit of a preview of this upcoming consumable. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to you later.